Badram karnebi shrnuyama devaha Badram pashyemakshabiryajatraha Stirairangaihi tushtuvagam sastanubhihi Yashema devahitam yadayuhu Svasti na indro vrdhashravaha Svasti na pusha vishvavedaha Svasti na starkshyo arishtanemihi Svasti no brahaspatir dadhatu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay, now the objector asks the next question in reference to the waking. Verse 11. Ubhayoho api vaitatyam bhedanam sthanayoho yadi kaha etan budyate bhedan kah vaitesham vikalpaka. If you say the objects in both waking and dreaming are unreal, who perceives all these objects, and who indeed is their maker? Okay, so the objector is maybe having some change of heart. He now wants to find out if you say that both the objects in the waking and the dream are unreal, then, okay, but then who creates them? How do they come about? Like, who knows them? Because if the subject who knows the objects is unreal, then what authority does that subject have to claim objects is unreal? Right? The unreal subject is claiming objects are unreal. I mean, so what does that make the subject, somehow more real? You see, so if the subject in the waking is unreal, and the objects in the waking are unreal, then what authority does the subject have to claim that objects are unreal? If the subject is also unreal, you can only claim that something is unreal if that statement is coming from a higher authority. Can the unreal dismiss the unreal? Because what we're doing here is we're dismissing objects, aren't we? We're rejecting the reality. We're claiming objects are unreal. But what gives us the right to do that? Because the brain or the mind that's claiming things to be unreal, that mind is also unreal. Is there something other than the unreal to make that statement? Otherwise, if we cannot find it, then Vedanta is claiming the theory of non-self. If the self that's claiming these things to be unreal was as good as this flower, and this flower can be broken down into non-flower, then the subject who's claiming this is unreal has no reality. It's being broken down into 1,000 different pieces. So, next verse, 13, says, how does the self imagine itself? Vikaroti aparan abhavan anantan chitta vyavastitan niyatan cha bahi chitta evam kalpayate prabhu. The Lord brings to manifestation all empirical worlds which are existing within his mind. Turning outward, he creates the ordained objects falling within this order. This is how the Lord brings about or projects or imagines the universe. Okay, what empirical worlds are we speaking of? The worlds that we're dealing with, right? The waking, the dream, and so on, and all the objects within them. So let's turn this into a Satya Mithya revision. What is satyam again? Satyam means real.
Limitless. True in all periods.
Real in all periods of time. Limitless, okay. Independent, what else? Source of all, what else? Not negatable. No beginning, no end.
All knowledge.
No. It's not attributes. It's not attributes. All knowledge and all power depends on consciousness. Consciousness is independent of knowledge and power. What else? Constant. It's non-dual. Describe non-dual. No second. What does no second mean? Describe.
One without a second.
One without a second. Is there something that it can be compared against? It's there in all periods of time. There's never a time that I cannot find it. Okay?
It can't be seen, nor touched.
It can't be seen, it can't be touched, can't be smelled, can't be burned, can't be dried, can't die, can't be born. What else? There's so many more words to Satyam.
Not negatable, unbreakable.
Not negatable, unbreakable, unbroken.
Cannot be contaminated.
Cannot be contaminated. Ever pure.
It's what I am.
It's what I am. It's that which is. Let's do a little structure. Satyamitya. Pot, clay. Pot is Mitya. We'll talk about what Mitya is. Clay is Satyam for now. For now. Then clay is atom. Now clay is. Now you cross out and then become Mitya. Atom is Satyam. So the same thing applies downwards. So you can also say that Satyam is Satyam until it's falsified by something else. Until you reach, and through an analysis, you cannot falsify it anymore. So suppose we come to an atom, we come to knowledge and power, and we say, as we said at the beginning, is the Satyam. But now, the real question is it the final Satyam? Because Satyam means, someone said, it's non-negatable. So the question is, can I negate knowledge and power? If I cannot negate, then that remains the final Satyam. So now I have to see, well, is knowledge and power that which is absolute in 3 periods of time? That means it's always there in its full brightness, in its full light. It never changes, it never wavers, it never manifests or unmanifests. That's what real means. It never manifests or unmanifests. And then I say, well, even knowledge and power manifests and unmanifests. No different than this. Look at this. A pot is manifest from a certain standpoint. It's unmanifest from another standpoint. Clay is manifest. If I look deeper, it's unmanifest. And what comes through? An atom is now manifest. Atom unmanifest by looking into deeper, and a particle is manifest. Knowledge and power, they're nothing but knowledge and power. So all the way through, knowledge and power was manifest and unmanifest. Now, even before the beginning of the universe, before even time and space was there, which is really funny to say that, beginning of the universe, beginning of time. So it's a real funny question to say that. But we'll go ahead to the sake of the mind. Before time and space and objects came, you have a wonderful big universe with galaxies, with people, with insects, with laws like dharma, karma. You have physics and science and all sorts of phenomena. Now all of that was not there before the universe came. Then what must have been before? That same thing in potential. But if you look at that thing, it's just nothing but connections and relationships, isn't it? Everything within the universe is connected to something else. An amazingly intricate network like a spider's web. So that implies that even the concept of time and space and objects must have been, the knowledge for how to create them must have been already in potential. We don't really have a symbol for potential, but we'll just put like an infinite sign. So that potential goes from unmanifest to manifest, so already it's changed. Already it's changed from manifest to unmanifest. What's the definition of Satyam, the final Satyam? That which never manifests or unmanifests. Yeah, it doesn't go through a state of now it's here, now it's not. Now there's consciousness, now there's no consciousness. Thereby, even knowledge and power, when it manifests, within the manifestation itself is manifesting and unmanifesting. Manifesting, unmanifesting. So everything about knowledge and power is manifesting, unmanifesting. Therefore, satyam crossed out. Now, if knowledge and power unmanifests, into what? That's the next question. And then through an analysis, you say, well, let's take my mind. Let's take a thought like 1 + 1. What was there before the thought? Because that 1 + 1 is really just knowledge and power in a form of 1 + 1. What was there before 1 + 1? It must have been a conscious being. Consciousness was there. So this means before the manifestation of knowledge and power, what is there? And then you say awareness. Awareness, and so now you say knowledge and power is mithya, awareness is satyam. Now you don't stop. Rigorous analysis. Because what are we trying to do? We're trying to arrive to the final reality. You cannot say, hey, all this here is atoms and I am at peace. Because whatever you know about reality, that is how reality continues for you. Understand this? What did we know about the previous reality in the previous body? That reality is as good as atoms. So therefore, I find myself existing in a reality full of atoms. So if I stop at atoms, and that's where my reality is, I am in a world of atoms. So now I say, okay, so there's knowledge and power. But suppose there's knowledge and power, but I'm still a separate being, also made of knowledge and power. Suppose you stop there. This is the motto of theistic schools. God is up there, Vaikunta, Vrindavan, and I am a small being, also made of knowledge and power, and I have to merge, I have to be in the lap of the Lord. Suppose you stop there. So we've not gone down here, and we are at the level of knowledge and power. Suppose you stop at knowledge and power. Is the equation solved? For you it is, until you analyze deeper. So if you don't solve the equation, you end up still being a small individual, being in the lap of the Lord. We call that traveling and going to different lokas, jnana loka, satya loka, brahma loka. So now we say, okay, then let's say awareness is the final satyam, which cannot be negated. So now I say, can I break down awareness? Can I take awareness into parts, into constituents? And then you think about it and you say, no matter how much I think about it, I'm not breaking down awareness. I'm breaking down my thoughts about breaking down awareness. You see? There's an underlying light in the presence of whom that attempt to break down awareness is known. That light you cannot negate. Is this clear? Okay, so break down your consciousness and put your hand up and you will get the prize. Let's go. Let's start. Break down your consciousness right now. Oh, really hard. Break down, break down, break down. During the entire process of trying to break down, something's watching. Break down consciousness. Huh? Something's watching that. That's something, that's you. Navya?
Okay, consciousness can't be broken down, but consciousness also created the rest of the thing.
It did not create the rest of the things. Consciousness had nothing to do with it. Remember that example of the dream?
Yeah.
So the waker, for now, we'll go through the logics. In the presence of the waker, who had no part upon making the dream was a complex creation. What created the dream? Your consciousness or the power in you called your mind?
Power in me called my mind.
Not consciousness. So there are two different orders of reality.
But it's all.
From the standpoint of transactional, you're making that standpoint from the standpoint of the transactional world. So it's like being in a dream and saying, yeah, but consciousness created all of this, the Lord created all of this. But who is the actual Lord? The waker who didn't create all of this. The waker in the bed. They didn't create all of this. But in the presence of this power, it seems like this one consciousness is taken and divided into 1,000 different little pieces. And then you say, well, there's, obviously it's broken down, but is consciousness really broken down?
So, is there something behind consciousness?
Okay, but suppose there's something behind consciousness. So, was that a thought that you just said?
It is a question.
Yeah, sure.
Because if one says the universe is one big thing, which has consciousness and creation and the whole shebang which we were talking about all these days, then if you say it cannot be broken down, no, but it is part. So you say creation is not the same as consciousness, which I can get, but then we are dividing things.
What is divided? The forms, what is divided?
The universe and its mirror, its consciousness.
No, it's like, go back to the example of, for example, wood.
Yeah.
Okay, from the standpoint of the wood, there's no real division. It almost seems like wood is different, table is different from the plate is different from the cup. In the standpoint of name and form, it seems like there's a division. From the standpoint of the substance, they're all just wood.
Yeah.
So you cannot say that the consciousness, there's consciousness over there and consciousness over here. Because even the space between two objects is also consciousness. Okay?
Okay. Got it.
Andre,
Hmm?
for me also this whole analysis is made clear if you bring this to an individual level,
Mm-hmm.
Vyasti, and you say, okay, the knower, the pramata, jnata, is in the mind.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a subject we experience. But even the knower in the mind has his own reference, its paradigms to interpret objects, no? So that's why the knower in the mind is also mithya. So that even the knower in the mind is not stable, it's changing because of the way we look at the world. Our interpretations change.
Yeah.
So even the knower in the mind is mithya, it's changeable. It needs still the consciousness to be there. It still needs this constant factor.
Yes, so
We also, an analysis on this individual level makes these things clear. So that's why the subject in the mind and the objects in the world are mithya. Still, they both need this consciousness.
okay, well that gives me inspiration to do a little chart for us. Before I do the chart, okay, so we talked about what is satyam. Now, what is mithya? That which is dependent on something else. So you have to then trace what is that something else and then analyze, is that dependent on something else, and so on. Okay, what else is mithya? Unreal. When you say unreal, be more descriptive.
Objects. Dat is een object, which is seen.
Unreal, you mean it doesn't have an absolute reality. Okay. It doesn't mean false. It doesn't mean tucham or asat. Asat or tucham means illusion, like sky flowers or man's horns. We're not saying that the wall is imagination. It's not tucham. It is dependently real. So there's a difference. That's why in Vedanta they say the world is illusion. The vernacular it goes like that. We never say that the world is illusion. Nowhere did Shankara ever say that the world is tucham or asat. This wall has a reality. So I don't call the world illusion. I call the world mithya, dependently real. What else is mithya? Always changing. It has a beginning and end. I gave you the list. Prayojanata. It is seen. It is useful. It's functional. You can cancel it out from another standpoint. It is changing. Okay, that's satisfactory. So, have we understood this chart over here that says, invisible now, awareness is satyam, that you cannot break it down. Okay, so that's how we come to the final reality. What can I not break down anymore? Now, Simon inspired me to just do a short diagram so there's no confusion. What's the highest reality? What do you want to call it based on your learning? Brahman. So you chose Brahman, okay? What other words have we used for Brahman? Atman, okay. Is anyone going to ask if it's one consciousness, why is there two words? Or you don't want to ask? Okay, I'm just asking.
No, I want to ask this.
Okay, okay. So both of them mean consciousness, existence. Consciousness, existence from the standpoint of one body is Atman. Yeah. Otherwise, both of them mean the same. Capacity to manifest the universe is called Maya. So right now there's no creation, by the way. There's no time, there's no space, there's no individuals. This is not happening. Maya has two powers. Avarana Shakti. And what is Avarana Shakti? Covering. And what's the purpose of covering? How does covering manifest in this world? Creates differences. Is that clear why?
No. You can see only part of the picture, so you have different pictures.
Yeah. So I have to cover black to see green. I have to cover green to see yellow. I have to cover up to see down. In other words, you can only see one thing at a time. If I'm seeing everything at once, it's all confusing. So it carves out. It's very simple. So I take a big block. And how do you now create a statue out of it? To create a man. You want to create a man out of a big block. What do? You take a chisel and you sculpt a man. Why do I not see a bird? Because I covered the bird in order to show the man. So the only way you can take one total material, which is Maya, and make a man versus a bird is if you take that material and you create just a man, create just a bird. That's why you don't have the compass to know which direction to fly. A bird does. Okay, or you don't have certain functions like, X-ray vision that is given to a snake. So for you, that vision, is it X-ray or infrared? I don't know. That vision is hidden for you, but for a snake, it's given. Okay, so that means for me, it's covered. Now, at the individual level, it also manifests as?
Ignorance.
Yeah, avidya. Avidya just means ignorance. Avidya of what? Yeah, excellent. Avidya of Atman, and what else? Of Maya. That's why we manifest in this world and we say all there is here is forms, but Maya is knowledge and power. Nobody goes around all there is here is knowledge and power. So it covers two realities from you. Consciousness, not that consciousness is covered, but the nature of consciousness to be pure, that is covered, and it covers Maya. And the second of Maya power? Vikshepa. Which is to project outwards. Projects knowledge and power like your dream, like your mind projects the dream world. Okay, so there's no universe. Now we can talk about the three gunas, that's another model, three guna. That's just a way to explain Maya. These two powers are a way to explain Maya. So don't worry about these terms, they're just to explain the one principle called Maya. We also explain Maya through, what is it? Knowledge and power. All knowledge and power. Okay, so these are the models we're using. We're using, in this course, Avarana Shakti and Vikshepa Shakti for Maya, and we're using all knowledge and power for Maya. In another course, we will use Trigunas and so on. Okay. So therefore, we will raise the Trigunas. Why am I saying this? Not to get overwhelmed with 10,000 words. Okay, so all knowledge and power stirs up and it manifests. Now, what it manifests is called Jagat. What's another name for Jagat? Prapancha. Prapancha, same words. And what does Jagat and Prapancha consist of? Two kinds of objects. Sentient. Okay, sentient. And insentient. So, sentient insentient is inside a world. So that's Prapancha. Actually, I will make it neater. I should put it like that. Sentient, insentient. Okay. Now let's take the sentient, which is you. And we'll call this sentient just Jiva. Jiva, in other words, a sentient being. And the Jiva asks, who created or what created this Jagat? And the answer is, we say Ishvara. It's like, well, where do I put Ishvara now? When you say Ishvara, it's talking about Brahman and Maya. Okay? So, Maya activated. Or Brahman in association with Maya equals Ishvara. Brahman, I'll say it like this, plus activated Maya or manifested Maya equals Ishvara. Okay? So don't think when I say Ishvara, I'm just talking about some knowledge and power distinct from everything else. When you say Ishvara, you're not excluding Brahman.
As Brahman and Maya are not two things, and still, how do you put it that Maya and Brahman doesn't have any attribute, but still is Maya somehow connected to Brahman? How do you frame that or phrase that in?
Yeah, that will be in chapter 4. For now, because I want to answer your question, I use an example of, like right now, Maya is just potential which is of knowledge and power. Yeah. Like right now, you have your consciousness, in the presence of your consciousness, there is literally a potential to create a world. Yeah? Tonight, in the dream. But that potential, can you call that potential an attribute? Because if it were to be an attribute, you would see it right now. It would be presented before. It would be like, here I am. I am an attribute. I am like a globe of intelligence that's going to manifest tonight. Do you see it now? You don't see it now. So though it's a potential, you cannot call it an attribute. That's the answer.
So Maya's potential of Brahman to manifest the world.
For now, I'm going to say it's a potential of Brahman, but I'm going to cancel that out in chapter 4 because there is no such thing as Maya. Yeah. Yeah, so we have to take it step by step because the brain, it needs something concrete. If I just say, like, suppose I was from, these, which I respect, these modern Vedantans, right? I'm going to tell you like this. There is no guru, there's no teacher, there's no world, there's no Maya, there's no Ishvara, there's no teaching, there's nothing to say, there's nowhere to go, there's nothing to do, there is not even the question, there's nothing to solve, there's nothing to figure out, there's no instrument to figure out, there's just nothing. And you're like, okay. Okay. You're just in this limbo. You're in this limbo. You don't know what to do. You don't know whether you should do something, not do something. Should I stay? Should I go? Is that the end of the lesson? So, yeah. And then you pay. Money. Ching, ching. Yeah. Now, I did not put that teaching down, by the way. That is the final teaching. But all the way at the end, in chapter 4, once you go through these terms. So for now, we're pretending like the sleep is real, dream is real, waking is real, Maya is real, Ishvara is real. but then we cancel all these terms out much later. Okay, so this is the map, and okay, now Jagat Prapancha, you can very simply put this jiva is given 3 states to experience. Waking, which we said is Vishwa, dream, which is Taijasa, and the causal, which is Prajna. Okay, 3 states. Okay, and this jiva, whatever state they're in, they associate themselves, they think they're as good as that state. So I am the waker, and these two are really not an issue, but it's mostly I'm the waker. However, everything about the waking, dream, and causal is pervaded by Ishvara. Okay? It's a very simple model. So instead of focusing on all these terms, just recognize it is knowledge and power manifesting as the jiva, manifesting as waking objects, as dream objects, and as sleep. It's just a design. It's a design of Ishvara. It's a beautiful setup. Sometimes people ask me, but why is it like this? Why do we have 3 states? Why not 10 states? And there's actually no point asking that, because it's always been like this. There's always been a design. There's always been 3 states that beings have been experiencing. Like, let it be. It's not my job to understand how this incredible, complex, mechanical, mechanics work. It's not a mechanical universe, by the way, but how the mechanics work. It's not my job to do that. My job is just to understand its knowledge and power, which resolves into Brahman, which is none other than Brahman. Okay, what else can we add in this chart that we spoke about? So Vaishvanara, the total physical of all objects. You can say everything that you perceive in this prapancha is Vaishvanara, all physical objects. All of the laws, so I'm just going to write it down. So Vaishvanara just means basically anything you can perceive, physical. Whether it's knowable or unknowable, like galaxies far away, it's also Vaishvanara. So therefore physical. Now the total intelligence, Hiranyagarbha. Hiranyagarbha, not only total intelligence, also all the laws. Yeah, so if I want to improve my health, then will I go and drive a car? Or will I go and exercise? See, there's a connection. If I want to learn how to sing, will I go and chop wood, or will I go to singing classes? So that means you know exactly what is a cause and effect connection. That is law. So laws of physics, laws of science, laws of energy, laws of karma and dharma, what is the right thing to do. All of that is Hiranyagarbha. And total causal, which we call the Ishvara. And from the total causal, Ishvara, comes the Jagat, the sentient, insentient, and the 3 states.
But Andre, in this model, it's a total causal is Ishvara. So we have, and Maya manifested is, so you have 2.
Yeah, I know that. It's another model to say, but remember, Ishvara is none other than Maya.
So, but actually for the term Ishvara, there are different teaching, different models also. No?
Yes.
Because I know some people are confused by this sometimes.
I'm just going to say Ishvara is the cause of the universe, and Maya is also the cause of the universe. The only difference is Maya is unmanifest, and Ishvara is manifest.
And where's the individual causal body in this model?
Causal body would be within Ishvara, because causal body is unmanifest. Or you could say a better term now, because tomorrow, that's a good question, tomorrow my tendencies are not expressed, right? So it's unmanifest. So you can say my causal body is also Maya, because I don't see it right now. Yeah, but it doesn't matter. It's just knowledge and power, unmanifest. Yeah. A nice term for the causal body I once heard from a teacher was, your causal body is a minuscule of the total causal body. Right? Just a little bit of tendencies, whereas the tendencies of the entire universe is to make plants grow. That tendency is not in me. To sustain life forms, that tendency is not in me. I don't have to sustain this life form. It's already done for me. My only tendency is to wake up and run and teach. That's my tendency. So that means in my causal body, there's a minuscule of these total causes. The total cause is taken and given to Andre. Total cause is taken and given to Christoph, and so on.
And to moksha, the individual causal body resolves into the total causal body?
Moksha means that causal body is mithya. It has no independent reality. It is knowledge and power depending upon consciousness, which is right here, right now.
It's not having any drive or any force anymore. Once realization has happened, then it doesn't produce any new physical body, right? So the individual causal body?
Can I get rid of the causal body? No.
No, but like once you have realized the true self.
Yeah. I can only remove ignorance in the causal body because I wake up as a seeker, showing me that there's ignorance.
That's what you said yesterday, when you wake up. And
Yeah. But I cannot eliminate tendencies from the causal body, only ignorance. I can change tendencies every single day by replacing them with something else, but I cannot eliminate all tendencies in the causal body.
okay. And how important is that to work on tendencies just to be more functional in the world?
Sure. It is as useful as they don't disturb you or drive you away from the truth. So for us, we don't have to worry about that. But even when the knowledge is here, there's still tendencies, so you may want to work with them. So there is a school in Advaita that says you have to get rid of all your tendencies for moksha. It's very unfortunately, it's common. But then we negate that and we say you will never be able to do that because there's infinite amount of tendencies still waiting for tomorrow, right? And you cannot eliminate that which is not manifest right now. What is there to say about eliminating which is in potential? I don't even know what they are. Yeah, so that means I have to what? Expose myself to 10 million situations to figure out what's going to come out of me. That's never going to happen. So this means, good question. So at what level do I sort out my tendencies, my samskaras, not vasanas, my samskaras, to the level that they don't disturb me and they keep me, my body is relatively on the path. It doesn't get disturbed. Okay. To that degree, you work on yourself. Otherwise, you can just keep on working on yourself forever. And I'll say, but you're already here. You're already trying the best that you can. You're already trying to understand the things. Just then do the best with what you got. Instead of going, okay, I have to go home and eliminate more tendencies. Hold on first.
Andre, I woke up with the same question this morning, and then I was just kind of waiting for the moment. Because how that's done, remove, as you say, when the ignorance is still in the causal body, you get another body. When you die, there's a continuation. So you have to remove the ignorance from the causal body. But can you break down, tell something more about this? Because I was thinking about, there's so many tendencies there, and they are really disturbing you in daily life, because you just like function, and then sometimes you don't function well enough because of one of your habits or tendencies. That's kind of impossible to get rid of them. How does ignorance will then neutralize this?
Okay, so sure. So your question needs to be divided into two parts. You're talking about transactional tendencies, and the main, which is called mula vidya, the core ignorance. The stula vidya, I'll put it like this. Mula avidya, and tula avidya. Okay, so that question uses this chart. So in order to come to the teaching and not be so bothered in a transactional sense, right, about your mind being pulled away to different directions, you have to work on your tula avidyas. That means ignorance about, what's the right way to act, how to respond, when to say things and not say things, how to reframe my, emotions in a manner that's aligned with, the world. So these are all things that we all have to do individually. These are all ignorances that we come with, that we're taught by the society, how not to do things. So you have to now do the right thing. You have to do things the right way. Every time you do an opposite, suppose you're being told to want things right now. That's a samskara. That's in your causal body. So now you practice being patient a little bit, giving it time. Say, it's okay, things need to unfold. Every time you practice that patience, that etches a new groove in the causal body. And that becomes a new samskara. We'll call it patience samskara. Now, when you take patience to the class, you're able to sit for an extra 20 minutes longer without going, oh my God, I want something different. So now that's one samskara has now helped you to stay put, or to focus, or to concentrate. If you are watching TikTok, which is unfortunate, it's training kids to develop what kind of samskara? A short attention span samskara. And you take that samskara to Vedanta, like 1 hour of this, no way. So you have to first tell them, okay, you need to at least watch something that's half an hour or something longer. So anyway, so that's one side. The other side, which is the moksha part, this mula avidya you've been carrying since beginningless time. Whereas this side, we'll call it the right side, you have always changed. Because every life you develop new samskaras, exhaust old ones. Maybe, you learn patience in this one. Before you developed non-empathy because you were always giving to people and people never gave you back. And you said, you know what, I'm not going to give back anymore because nobody gives back to me. So you started out with empathy in life. And you were giving. That was a good thing, a good samskara you came with. And people just didn't really appreciate that. And you found yourself saying, you know what, I've been giving, but I'm not appreciated. So now I'm not going to give anymore. And every time an opportunity shows up, you say, no, I'm not going to give because it's going to lead to the same pain I've had before. So now you develop what came as a good samskara, it turns into another opposite. That's why we say it's like a stock market, every life. So the right side is always changing. And for the sake of concentration, focus, being put, and being disciplined a little bit to stay with it, commitment, that's the right side. The left side has never been touched. That's why we were all born. So one life, we show you, the tradition shows us that this entire thing, both the right side, needs to be addressed, number one. Number two, it is not who you are. It's got nothing to do with you. It's just a samskara that's being given to one body and mind. Yeah? And then it shows you about who you really are. And how does it do this? It negates who you think you are. It negates that you're the sleeper. It negates that you're the dreamer. It negates that you're the waker. It also negates the three bodies. We use an example. Where can you find your body? Can you really find a body if it's made of no bodies? So this is neti, step one. Neti. First, remove those associations which I have mistakenly put my identity into. Step two, I have to tell you who you really are. That's what we did verse 7. What is Atma? So we did about you are, that which is not seen. You cannot see Atma. You cannot objectify it, and so on. So every time you remove those notions about who you are, you remove another dot that makes up this mula avidya. You remove this dot. I thought I'm supposed to be, found in the future. That's a notion, yeah? And that notion was there. And then I say, no, there will never be a better awareness in the future. The awareness that you are is the same awareness that you always have or always are enjoying. So you say, that notion is out. But then you say, but I've got more doubts. I'm supposed to see it. I'm supposed to see have some big moment to know that I can finally say that I'm free. I have to wait in the future to say that I'm free. I have to wait for some special event to say that I'm free. And I say, no, there's no event that you will wait for that event will never come. You're already free right now. You are the presence in whom that thought of trying to be free is illumined. That presence is not, right, gone anywhere. So I remove that notion. And there's one final notion called akanda akara vritti. Akanda akara vritti is where, I'll write it down. It is a vritti because you only have thoughts, don't you? We all work with thoughts. But why is it called akanda akara? Why is it called divisionless thought? Because there's that one final piece of the puzzle, that one final notion that doesn't introduce an image of Atma in your mind, but rather it cancels out that one final piece that was making you think that Atma is an object, like anything else. But I haven't introduced an image. For example, if I show you this, what's taking place is called vritti vyapti, right? An object has taken place in your mind, and phala vyapti, and therefore ignorance of the pen has been removed. Firstly, it's been objectified, vritti vyapti, and the ignorance has been removed, phala vyapti. Okay? But then if I show you awareness, can I create an image of awareness in your mind? No, I can't. All I can do is I can show you what you are not. And how do I do that? I show you that you are not that which is seen or objectified or felt or heard. You will never hear who you are. And so I remove every single thought, and all that happens is I do phala vyapti in your mind. I remove ignorance of who you are, of your nature. And at one final doubt, when it's gone, you go, got it. Crystal clear now. Therefore, your mula avidya is gone permanently. And when you wake up tomorrow, what happens when you wake up tomorrow? So yesterday, we had this, mula avidya. This was literally 24 hours ago. And then that one final notion, which was still making you think that you're something else, was erased by the guru or the teaching. When it's removed, the entire left side is blank now. Tomorrow you wake up, are you still a seeker? You're no longer a seeker. What does that show you? Mula avidya is gone. So that's the technicalities of it. Otherwise, we just teach and that happens automatically. So.
But the right side is still there.
Excellent. So the right side is still there. And so what happens is moksha takes place, and several students have this issue. They come up to me and say, there was a high for about 3 or 4 days or sometimes a month or so on. The emotion comes along with it. And now I thought moksha is this big explosion, this big cosmic orgasm. Everything's supposed to be different and much better, and just, birds are singing and so on. And that high has gone away. And I'm really now surprised that I'm back to normal. And I say, why are you back to normal? Even though you have removed the left side, why are you back to normal? Because of this. And that is why Vedanta has nididhyasanam. Nididhyasanam is simply re-listening to the knowledge again and again and again. And each time you re-listen, you remove impatience. You remove anger. Remove judgment. Remove, shallow thinking. Remove premature conclusions. And that takes years until one day you look at and you got hardly anything there. But do not ever think that you will ever erase the entire right side. That is an error. So where does then tripti, which after some years we say now you have tripti. Tripti is contentment. Where does the tripti of the white person come from? It comes from having worked on one's proclivities, orientations, and now it's relatively clean. And now you come to a very strange place. You come to a place and you say, I really don't mind whether there's more stuff in here or less stuff in here. It's got nothing to do with me. And yet I had to do all this stuff after moksha to realize that. So what is the real tripti? Real tripti is not about some fireworks. It's just really recognizing whether there is tripti in my life or not. It really doesn't matter. Because your identity is firm. I have no connection to whatsoever. And that takes some years to that place. 10 years, 15 years, and so on. Re-listening to Vedanta over and over again. Even though, hey, your left side is over.
So, this other school, I don't know the names, they say only after the last sentence, then you can claim moksha.
Only after the right side.
Yeah, so you have to
I know the school.
live all these things.
Yeah.
If you cannot, if you're not, if the right side is still there, you cannot claim moksha.
Yeah.
You have to wipe that all out.
Yeah.
And only then you can claim anything.
You know how you wipe this? You know what that would mean? That would mean you have no more personality. You won't even be able to communicate. Even to communicate is, the way you communicate is on the right side.
So we nuance it that on the right side there should only be dharmic ways of being.
Yeah, but see, yeah, that's very extreme. That means, I'm supposed to go like this. Or insects, right? That the only way you do that is when you eliminate after death. While alive, that will never happen, because there is always more missed potential. It's in unmanifest. As I said earlier, you have to live out infinite amount of situations to get every single vasana out. It's never going to happen.
Not even Brahman Maharshi had that.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. People, put him on a pedestal, but those who lived with him, it was just an ordinary man cooking, and sometimes getting, hassling over people wasting food.
And do you know what makes those people of that school think like that? What is their logic for that?
What the first thing comes to my mind is, I would have to just say it's unrealistic. And I have to question, who is saying that? Is someone who's living in a protected place, living in the real world, you will be triggered constantly. People will constantly challenge you.
You also have these teachers. It seems to be the left side is somehow gone, but they have weird stuff going on, and they fall. Yeah, that's the dharmic thing, and so it can happen like that with weird dharmic thing, and then still the other side. What do you think?
See, to come to this journey, if you're in the right tradition, then you have already undergone a lot of work, especially if the person is under the guidance of a teacher. If they're on their own, then they can sidetrack themselves easy. Yeah. But if I am accountable to someone else in the tradition, and I'm connected, and I cannot afford to fool around, then there's always something holding me all throughout. And that very act of being in the tradition, you cannot make such mistakes. I can only imagine such mistakes can be made if I totally separate myself from the tradition, and I'm on my own, and I have no responsibilities to anyone. And then I can sort of make my own rules. Yeah? Yeah,
because you have these teachers, they are for a while, it all seems beautiful and everybody's around them and they do this, and then they were pedophiles. It happens. It did happen.
Okay.
And they are not, I don't say that they don't have the left side empty, but this dharmic thing is a question even afterwards.
Yeah, I don't think this happens in Advaita Vedanta.
No,
yeah. I don't know about other traditions, but here, you've got so much, help from different sides. Yeah. So it's hard to make a mistake.
No, but it's hard for me to imagine, I can imagine that it does happen even after moksha, that people do weird stuff.
Yeah, I would not doubt that.
What I hear is that the lineage could have a potential mistake, prevented the potential mistake because you're committed to the lineage, not to your truth.
Shan?
Well, it's not
So we've covered Satya Mithya. Okay, let's just have a little inquiry. How does this Satya Mithya change our life? Let's get a little more practical, down to earth. When you see that you have a fallback, right, on a much larger reality than just forms, what does that, do for you? What could that do for you? That it's not just all form. My mom is, like this. My dad is like this. The world is like that. Where could your vision then fall back onto, if you have something larger to fall back on? How might that, impact you every day?
That it all comes forth from the universal principle, intelligence.
Okay, so if it all comes from the universal principle, then are you really being targeted? But when something bad happens to you, is it really about you? Are you being like, someone sending a thunderbolt from above, and it's about you? Can you really take it personally? No. Because you see, the laws don't really excuse anyone. If you fall, it's not like gravity is, trying to beat you. Gravity is just doing what it does. If you go and try to get a job, okay, and you don't get the job, and you say, are you being punished that you didn't get the job? Or it's just how it worked out. There are other people like you who want the job also, and you just happen to not be right in that selection mode. So when we look at the laws, that they're not trying to look at me and then make my life miserable. They're just working. They have to do what they do, right? If I do something bad, suppose a saint does 20 years of good work, and they make one mistake, and the laws say, it's okay, I'm going to give you a break because you did 20 years of good work. Could you trust that law? You couldn't. That means, oh, okay, so, they got a freebie this time. I can't trust the law. The law has to work. 20 years of perfect effort. If I make one mistake, the law will act on me, the Mr. or Mrs. Perfect, no different than someone who's been doing 20 years worth of mistakes. So it's not about you. It's just showing you how to navigate yourself in the world, what corrections to make. Also, for instance, we have this division in the world where it's secular versus spiritual. Is the world really material and spiritual? Can you really put this category onto the world? Remember that when I say Caucasian, you're excluding Asian, Black, Chinese. But when I say humanity, you're including everyone at once. So in that same manner, can I, if my knowledge is if my cognitive understanding is all that is here is knowledge, if that is true, then can I really say that people are, like this, you're like that, you're excluded, you shouldn't deserve to have the best that you need? Can I really start to put people down if I know that they are the exact same Lord that is making this body tick right now? The same healing power that's healing their body, that's making them breathe, is the same healing power, the same intelligence that's making this body breathe and heal in this moment. The same air that my so-called opponent is breathing is the same air that I'm breathing, governed by the same laws, the same intelligence. So there's no question of saying you're spiritual, you're material. No, these labels go away. So this statement is a little bit uncomfortable, I get it, because we're not speaking like this in our life. But the more we start to speak like this, and you refuse deliberately to label off people as spiritual, or yourself, and material, and start to see the intelligence obtaining in that person, the more you do that over and over again, without a question, you build a samskara. And that becomes automatic. And that becomes a very pleasant journey to live. I was watching the show Shark Tank. And two people, they have 3 houses. And I'm thinking, why do you need so many houses? Oh, because for me, house is my security. You don't feel secure? That's what you don't have Ishvara in your life. If I don't have Ishvara in my life, I need 5 houses. Save yourself some money too. Okay, so suppose you look at the sun. Is it still the sun, a ball of gas, helium, atomic bomb explosions? Or could you look at it as Ishvara, as glory, in a form of light that's powering our plants and helping us live in this world? When you look at the sun, glorious light. Before eating, take a little moment to acknowledge that the farmers I've never met, there are many people who are involved to bring this food to my plate. Do you like to pay the taxes? I used to hate paying the taxes until I realized, wonderful, I love paying the taxes now. Yeah, because it's giving back to my country. And when you pay your taxes, you're aligning to Ishvara's order, aren't you? What about handling difficulties? How does that manifest in your life now? Handling difficulties. Is it a difficulty or is it just a learning lesson? So you're aligning to Ishvara's dharmic law by paying the taxes. Before, I'm paying the government. Now, I'm serving the dharmic law. I'm aligning with the dharmic law. You see how it instantly changes the same thing? So the whole question, where is the Lord? That falls away. Right? The Lord is always with you, obtaining as your body, as your thoughts, taking care of you, keeping you safe, alive. The generosity of this universe is so vast that we completely miss it. We think I need more to be happy, but you're given way more than you deserve. You're giving a life, one more day, you're given the tradition, you're given the teaching, you're given the key, you're given food, you're given so much. And it bears repeating that you are given huge amounts of wonderful things in your life. Because the moment we forget Ishvara. Ishvara is always giving you. So from that comes gratitude. Not because you've been told, be grateful. Just because you understand, I'm constantly given in this moment. So let's remember this. The knowledge and power is not just a mechanical thing. Oh, there's knowledge in the walls and so on. It's really alive. The whole thing is alive. And it is uncomfortable to start thinking like this at the beginning. As I said, as we do so more and more and more, Ishvara now is in your life all the time. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Avashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.